What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This right here, as you all know, is the podcast where we dive into the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's REXXX. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. And the DNA testing is almost conclusive, and it'll prove once and for all that you were looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a lot of grams. I got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man. Mr. Wop Bop Loo Bop Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Ooh, I'm high as a fucking kite. I'm not even going to front here, folks, as the kids would say. Looking good. Pops, everybody in the house, including my beautiful audience, looking good. You know how I get it done? Boom. Right there. Coming to you, as always, from the Lavender Lounge of Love, joined as always by the great Keith Hernandez Puppet, number 17 in your program, number 1 in your hearts, my right-hand man / puppet, bringing you the No Frills podcast. No frills. Incapable over here, but very capable of delivering thrills, and that's looking at the face of a rock star. And our guest is here, and I'm excited about tonight. This is going to be a good one, folks. We're going to chop it up with him right now on Pod Scum. I'm pumped. Up, sideways.
Here we go.
There we go. Jesse Vest. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it, man. It's a pleasure getting the chance to talk to you.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Now, you identify with several bands, man. People might think Days of the New, Tantric, your new band BLISSKRIEG. Is there one that you feel like you identify with the most because you were such a big part of all those bands?
Well, that's a good question. To me, all right, to a large degree, all of those bands are the same band.
Yeah,
because really the only difference is the singer.
Yeah.
In Days of the New, we had Travis in Days of the New.
Yeah.
We had Hugo in Tantric, and we have Donald in BLISSKRIEG. But the main core of the band has always stayed the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It all kind of runs together. There are differences for sure, in all of those projects, but they all kind of feel like home in a way.
Yeah. And I read something interesting about you, though. Your parents were really big into bluegrass. Was the first instrument you got in your hands a banjo?
So let me just say this. Don't believe everything you read on Wikipedia.
That's a good caveat, kids. Pay attention to that. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Definitely.
But I'll say this. So my father was a pretty big bluegrass fan.
Okay.
And he encouraged me to start playing banjo, and it lasted for 3 months, and I had moved on because now I grew up. My parents were separated when I was young.
Yeah,
and I grew up mainly with my mom. So, and my mom, her idea of great music, is my current idea of great music, which is like the Eagles and Bob Seger.
Yeah.
And, my mom was a rocker, so I grew up listening to that stuff. So, I kind of fooled around with the banjo for a little bit to sort of humor my dad. And I credit him for sort of getting me started actually with the fingers moving on something and learning to play something.
Yeah.
But, I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. And I was at my cousin's house, and he pulled out a vinyl copy of Metallica's Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
And the banjo was like, okay, see you later, banjo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I moved on into the world of rock and roll and never really looked back.
Yeah. That's credit to Metallica. I think the boys have probably influenced more than a few people, for sure.
I mean, they've done okay. They've done okay for themselves.
Yeah. I want to get this question out here and head this off and just get your, just throw it out there as kind of like a feeler, because obviously what was once old becomes new again. And that's certainly no pun intended here with Days of the New, but any chance that there would ever be to work with Travis and have that original lineup back together again? Or is that door kind of closed?
I think it's safe to say the door's closed.
Okay.
Now, but I said that before. I said that in 1998 when the band split up.
Yeah.
And then in 2014, we did a very short-lived, very tumultuous reunion tour.
Yeah.
And I think we played 12 or 13 shows, and the wheels fell off of it, and we had to call it a day. But and at that point, I said, I just don't think I could ever work with Travis again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing has happened in the intervening years to make me think otherwise.
Yeah.
But I just don't really say never anymore. It seems silly to say it.
But it's pretty crazy though. I mean, do you think, and of course we see it in Hollywood a lot, where kids get famous, and they don't always segue very well into adulthood. Now, the Days of the New, if I'm not mistaken, you guys had just graduated high school, and suddenly you're out on a tour.
That's the case.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was the one who we sort of were waiting for me to graduate.
Yeah.
Before we really went hard and heavy on the tour, because not to throw Matt and Travis under the bus here, but they had quit school.
Yeah.
Like they didn't finish. I was the last guy in that was waiting on, that graduation day. And, but basically as soon as it happened, we were out on the road and had the record deal and touring, and it happened very young, probably too young.
Yeah.
Probably too young.
It's a lot
because
on you.
It's a lot heaped on us, and we had. So young people are all stupid anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
But I've never met a 20-year-old who had his shit together. So.
Never. Myself included. I didn't have I would never say, I only got my shit together about 5 minutes ago. I mean, I'm fucking 50 years old. I mean,
I'm still waiting. But I think that, getting thrown in the meat grinder like that, none of us were prepared. We hadn't even experienced real life, let alone the surreal life of being, in a touring rock and roll band and having a platinum record. Like who saw that coming,
Yeah. If going back here a couple of years to 2020, when everything went fucking batshit crazy with COVID, how did that affect you personally or career wise? Like, did that derail anything you had going on musically, or obviously the plug got pulled on almost everything? How did that affect you?
Well, there was a negative effect and there was a positive effect. I should say, when we started this interview, you named 3 projects that I've been associated with.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There's a 4th one.
Okay.
For basically, so this is late June. In August, it'll make 15 years that I've had a project called the Crashers.
Oh, I have Louisville Crashers here. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We mostly go by the Crashers, but we're also known as the Louisville Crashers, and it's not an original project. It's like, it's a fun party band. We play cover material, we dance songs, we get people, we play a lot of corporate events. It's not the stuff that I'm most known for.
Right.
But it is the stuff that has paid most of my bills for the last 15 years.
Yeah,
so
what's wrong with that?
So you getting back to 2020, you were asking about, when COVID hit. The bad part is that it did shut the Crashers down, and we went about 8 months without performing at all, which was a big dent in our income, as you can imagine. But the saving grace of that is that if we had not had that lapse in action and had that time off, I never would have been able to get back into touch with Matt and Todd and hook up with Donald to do the BLISSKRIEG record.
Yeah.
So that's that's what we did with our pandemic. We wrote and recorded an album, and it's one that we're really proud of. We didn't do it with a label, and we haven't really marketed it at all. Like I was talking to Matt and Todd earlier today, and we're trying to put a plan together to get it actually pressed up into vinyl and be able to sell some, because we've gotten a lot of requests for that. But just releasing it on our own, like I said, for the budget that we had, we think it's a great record, and it wouldn't have happened without the pandemic.
It is a great record. And I'm interested to know, back in, when you were young, what was the first album or artist or song that really resonated with you, that kind of got you your jump start of your love for music? Do you remember?
Oh, well, definitely. I mean, it was Metallica.
Yeah.
But even before that, again, if I could just give that shout out to artists like Bob Seger, which people will argue this with me, but Bob Seger may be our greatest living singer-songwriter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know Bob Dylan fans want to crucify me for saying that, but
yeah.
But just his he even at a young age, he has a way of writing and performing a song that draws you in, and he paints a picture with his lyrics.
Yeah.
And so I was a big fan of that when I was growing up. But then I discovered the metal and the grunge. And so Metallica was first. It was sort of my first love. And that was back in the days where we also had hair metal was kind of going on.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I loved a lot of that stuff, and still do. I still listen to.
Me too.
I still listen to Cinderella sometimes. Like those first couple of Cinderella albums are just great, and first Guns N' Roses albums. Well, all the Guns N' Roses records are great.
Yeah.
But then I was in early high school. It's probably a freshman, 8th grade, 9th grade, something like that, when I discovered everything that was coming out of Seattle.
Yeah.
And that changed not only my direction, but Matt and Travis as well. It bears saying that, so Days of the New, Matt and Travis and I grew up together in the same very small town.
Right.
And so anything that was going to influence one of us musically was going to influence all three of us musically. Like we were, always together, hanging out together, playing music together. And we didn't actually meet Todd until a little later, like, basically, I don't know, a year before I graduated high school is when Todd came into the picture. Yeah, that's sort of the musical journey from the old school rock to the metal stuff to the grunge stuff, and then of course by that time we're sort of making our own music.
Yeah, and one thing that set you guys apart and was very unique about your sound, and it's certainly been prevalent in other bands and other acts in their music. But I mean, for a rock band to really feature so much acoustic guitar and still make it sound, very sludgy and heavy, whose idea was that? I mean, obviously I know Travis is known for his abilities on the acoustic guitar. Is that something he brings, or is that something you guys collectively kind of form together?
I think I could probably give Travis most of the credit for that, if not all the credit for that. And I say that because, like I never, ever in the Days of New stuff played an acoustic bass. It was always an electric bass. So Travis is the one that started making that. And a lot of that had to do with, I don't know if he would admit this or phrase it this way, but when we were kids, he lived with his grandmother, and he was a night owl, and he could not stay up blaring the amp all night long. So he would write and play these songs on acoustics so it would stay quiet. And he ended up writing that way, and the songs just sort of naturally suited the instrument.
Wow.
So that's definitely was a big part of it. But then once the ball got rolling on the acoustic, it just kind of stayed that way. And the whole first Days of the New record, of course, is just all acoustic guitars, acoustic drums, and me and the electric bass.
Yeah. And what was the creative process like collectively as a band back then? I mean, you say Travis is bringing most of the acoustic guitar, but like the writing, all that stuff, is it a collaborative effort? Because you all seem very prolific, creatively.
Yeah, we did and still do occasionally catch a lot of flack. Maybe that's not even the right way to put it, but I think that because Travis, I'll just say it right here up at the front. Admittedly, Travis is probably the most like creative mind I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Like,
I get
he's
that.
a really, really amazing songwriter.
Yeah.
Of great creative talent.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would take that and assume that he wrote everything, and that's just not the case.
Right.
So, and I think that was part of the fuel behind the fire when we put Tantric together, is we wanted to show people, hey, listen, we can do some stuff too.
Yeah.
We wanted to show that we were part of that equation of the success of that first record, that first Days of the New record. But we always, the thing about being young, one of the things about being young is it just seems like you had so much free time. Like now I'm 46. I feel like I have zero free time.
Yeah, I know.
But when you're young, it's like you're young, you play music, you're just always hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah.
And so when you're hanging out with your buddies, somebody's playing a riff and you're like, oh, that's cool. Let me see what this sounds like when you play that.
Yeah.
And what does it sound like with that drum beat? And so a lot of the stuff was collaborative. There were some riffs that I brought in, the bulk of it, of course, it was Travis, just because he's like I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a long time. We didn't end on good terms. Last time I spoke with him a few years ago.
Right.
But he really is. He's like a Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Or a Tom Brady. He's just like he has some sort of gift that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff, just came out of the ether into his brain, and all of a sudden it wound up in our band and we were playing it,
Yeah. I recently was talking with Kevin Wood, his brother Andy Wood. We were talking about Seattle bands before, Mother Love Bone. And obviously Andy, suffered with personal demons and addiction. When Travis is going, and I asked him this as well, when Travis is going through his personal demons, is there anybody that's in a position, to kind of reach him at that point and pull him out of that? Or did you guys just not, could nobody fill that role?
At first, when we were young, I guess I kind of filled that role.
Yeah.
Because, people may have the assumption that we got a record deal young and somehow that ruined Travis and his mental health and gave him addiction issues, stuff like that. But the fact is, even when we were little kids, he had mental health issues and he had, addiction issues.
Yeah.
That from middle school age, he had struggled with a lot of stuff. And early on, I could be that kind of person that could try to, get in there and make him see the bigger picture and sort of rise above whatever it was that was hurting him at the moment and leading him to this self-destructive behavior. But eventually, the demise of Days of the New, the original lineup of Days of the New, was because nobody could reach him anymore.
Yeah.
Like he had become, he was no longer sort of this, scared little kid who had a lot of talent and a lot of demons and was trying to figure life out. The people around him, management and record label and all, booking agents, they had sort of inflated his ego so much, and they had handed him so much power within the dynamic of the band itself,
Yeah.
that there was just, by the end of it, he had his own bus, and the rest of the band and the crew were on another bus, because we literally couldn't be together.
Yeah.
It was a rough deal.
Yeah. And so not to jump around, but to fast forward to present day now, where you are currently in your life, are you in a position to do a lot of touring, and what's a comfortable itinerary for you at this point in your life? Like, if you take a band like BLISSKRIEG and you go out on the road, is there a set amount of time you like to be away from home?
Well, I like to be away from home as little as possible.
Yeah.
Now, the way that I've got it set up for, like BLISSKRIEG, we put that album out a couple of years. Yeah, I guess it's been a couple of years ago now. We put that record out, but we've never performed it live. We've never gotten together, played any shows, and part of that is because we're all grown-ups now, and we have our own stuff going on, and it's just difficult to work out schedules. Another part of it is that while Matt and I still live here in Southern Indiana, Todd lives down in Florida now, and Donald, the singer of BLISSKRIEG, lives out in Texas.
Yeah.
So it's just logistically, it's very difficult, especially when you couple it with the fact that, my main bread and butter at this point in my life, which is the Crashers, we're doing, over 100 dates a year.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to try to book around that stuff when you've got family. And so it's something we would love to do, but I just don't know that we ever will. I would like to be able to do it. I just don't know if it's ever going to work out like that.
And when you get together and do this BLISSKRIEG album, same question that I asked about Days of the New. What's the creative process like for that? Is that collaborative, or has somebody got the lion's share of the ideas?
That was like 100% collaborative, and it was very strange, man, because we all, like, I had never met Donald before. Todd and Donald had some sort of an established relationship that they had just had online, because Todd was a big fan of Donald's former work. Donald was in a band called Submersed, which I don't know how familiar you are with them. And he was in another band called I Empire. And so Todd had sort of sought him out just because he liked the work. And so he sent him a message randomly on Instagram saying, "Man, I really like this work. This is great." And they started a dialogue. And we ended up completely randomly. Like I said, none of us expected a pandemic, so we weren't planning any of this.
Right.
But we were like, well, why don't we just get together and jam and see what happens? And I'm not kidding you when I say the BLISSKRIEG record was like the easiest thing creatively that I've ever been a part of. Like, it just kind of, we got into the room and it just kind of fell out. Like it was just so easy. It was like drinking water or walking down the street. It was just like all of a sudden we had a record,
Yeah. And do you think that, and do you attribute that to that it's still being that same nucleus, that's been with all the other bands?
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Matt and Todd and I, that those us three, is that we can, and we have at times of our life, the three of us have gone years without talking to each other before.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, over the last couple of years, I don't think a day's gone by that I haven't talked to him. We have this little video messaging app that we just stay in constant contact almost, because I guess we're at a stage in our life where we're appreciating that friendship, because we go back such a long way. But what I was saying was, there's been times in our lives where we've gone years without talking to each other, but then when the three of us get in a room together, it's like no time has passed. We're exactly where we left off. So yeah, if you had tried to throw four random dudes together in a room to write this album, it probably wouldn't have turned out very well.
Yeah.
But because we have this sort of chemistry and we understand to a large degree how each other's brains work, and it just kind of happened.
Yeah, well, these are guys you've been making music with now, in multiple bands. So, I imagine there's certainly got to be, a level of creative kinship there.
Yeah, and I guess anybody who works together for a long period of time will develop this capacity. But it's almost like you'll hear stories about twins who have like their own language.
Right. Yeah.
Like we kind of have in certain instances we have our own language, like because none of us are formally educated in music. We don't like. I don't really know anything about music. Like I could. I mean, if you put me in with real musicians, I'm lost.
Yeah.
But I speak fluent whatever it is that we do, and a lot of times, Matt and I will be talking, and we won't even say words. We'll just make noises, and we'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way we think, and
yeah, it's a
like
system that works. A system that works for you guys.
It's a system that works for us, and a lot of people don't believe me when I say this, man, but I was like, are you a musician at all?
Not at all. No, I'm not.
Okay.
Nope. That's why that's why I'm fascinated. That's why I have to chuckle, when I think of all the great music you've made, and then to sit here and have you say, I know nothing about music is just mind boggling to me. I mean,
well, I'm assuming there's probably gonna be some musicians who will watch this.
Yeah.
And they may not believe me when I say this, but I didn't know, like, the bass, you've got the neck and it's got the frets and you have different notes for the different areas on the neck.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what any of those notes were called until I was like in Tantric.
Yeah.
So I went through the whole Days of the New thing, all that whole experience, recorded the record, toured it, did all that stuff. But I didn't really know what the notes were called. Like if you told me play a G or play a C, I didn't know where that was.
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
To a large degree, I've had to step up my game over the last 15 years because I actually do play with some guys who know what they're talking about, and they don't speak the same language that Matt and Todd and I do.
Got to bone up on your chops a little.
Yeah. I've become much better at this whole music thing over the last 15 years, just because I've had to. But I don't know. It's like if you grow up in a neighborhood and you got guys like if you play basketball with your friends down the street or something, eventually you learn, okay, this is where my buddy's going to pass it to me, and then I'm going to take the shot from over here. You just kind of know these things instinctively, and I never needed to know the names of the notes. It just wasn't an issue,
What about like rudimentary stuff, though? I mean, and again, I'm speaking from a non-musician standpoint, but I always hear people like reading tabs or not reading traditional music. But I mean, so when you guys get together and create, you're just kind of like humming what you want the bass line to be, and then just figuring out how to play that.
I guess. I mean, like I understand now, and I've understood for a while how to read things like tab. I can't read any sheet music. I don't know anything about music theory really.
Yeah.
But when we're writing, back in the day when we were writing, it was very experimental, and there were some like. When you're writing a song and somebody plays something that doesn't belong, it's very obvious. Even if you don't know that they played a C instead of a D, you know that it's obvious that what that was doesn't belong. So you just figure it out.
That didn't sound good.
Yeah. So that's what it was. For you just trial and error, and you sort of work your way through it, and that's just the way we did it.
And even going back to the Days of the New, are all of you guys collectively, man, like that, that classic lineup, you guys were all on the same page like this? Like nobody understood music?
No. Actually, if I implied that, let me take that back, because Todd, did and
Okay.
does understand music better than I do.
Okay.
Like he had some sort of, and I don't want to speak for him because I don't remember exactly, but he had some sort of formal training. He took lessons. He knew things that I didn't know. But like I said, he came in a little later in the game.
Yeah.
So when Matt and Travis and I were growing up, and it was just the three of us kids, there was a lot of confusion. Like as far as people, we'd be playing and somebody would ask us a simple question, or what should be a simple question, and we wouldn't know the answer to it.
Right.
Right. we were just playing. Like, and if I got confused, I'd look at him, see what he was doing, and there was some correlation between the guitar and the bass that I could follow along, and vice versa. You know what I mean? If I was playing something new and he was going to follow me into it, there's a visual component to it. And I'll just say this also, I don't think that's terribly unusual.
No.
Like it might be unusual these days because now there's so much information available. Like, YouTube, you can learn how to play any song on YouTube.
Right.
But we didn't have that. It was just a different time. So I thought we did the best we could with what we had.
I know. I mean, nowadays you could take virtual guitar lessons or virtual any instrument lessons, and you know, and not even be in the same room with your instructor. I mean,
yeah.
And now, when you think about the beginning of Days of the New, when you're coming right out of high school, are you able to now at this stage of your life, tap back into how much pressure that there was back at that time? That had to be a tremendous amount of pressure. And how did you guys deal with it? I mean, was it hard to stay on track and stay on the rails? I mean, now you're on a major tour and there's money and there's a lot of temptation around. I mean, how did you guys stay grounded? Did you stay grounded?
We did not stay grounded.
I mean, goes without saying, Travis. I mean, because obviously, his personal demons have been pretty public or whatever, but the rest of you guys were not quite as publicized. I don't think he seemed to get more of the attention, as a lot of lead singers do.
Yeah. Well, we all were. To get back to like your original question was there a lot of pressure, or did we, how did we handle that sort of pressure going into a situation like this? We didn't, or at least speaking for myself, I did not feel like there was a lot of pressure. It's like that was basically my whole life. What I mean was, it's not like I graduated high school and then spent, put 10 years of hard work into playing clubs, and then I got a break.
Right.
Like in my young, naive mind, when I graduated high school, I got a record deal and went on the road because obviously that's the next step.
Right.
Like my brain, it was just like, okay, this is just how life goes, because I was young and stupid. I didn't, so I don't think that I felt that pressure. I think that what we did a lot was, I think the thing that you're not prepared for when you tour like that, when you tour as heavily as we did early on, what you're not prepared for is the boredom.
Yeah.
So I think that most of the trouble that is caused throughout all of rock history, all these crazy stories you hear, it's because people were bored. Yeah. Because you play for, you play for 75 to 90 minutes each night, which leaves you, what is that? 22 and 22 hours and 45 minutes. Yeah. It's like, so, what we ended up doing was basically just a continuation of the life we were already living in the small town we were from, which was, hey, let's get some beer and drink a lot.
Yeah.
And then, and then there was the show. And then after the show, hey, are there any girls around here?
Yeah.
Like that. So that we just filled our time the only way that we really knew how to do it, which was drinking.
Right.
And we drank a lot.
Yeah. So you're saying that there really wasn't a lot of pressure then. It really wasn't a deviation from the life you already live in. So what's the expectation like back then? Because obviously now it feels like the music business has changed so much, and people want to stay relevant, and they're trying to, just keep their music out there. But how much pressure was a record label putting on you guys back then? To churn out music. You didn't have to put out stuff as fast back then, though, right? I mean, you could take a little time.
Yeah. Well, and also, so by the time, so we were very prolific, in the sense that by the time we got offered a record deal, we had a lot of material.
Yeah.
And so the biggest challenge for that first record was just sitting down with all the material and saying, okay, well, which 10 or 12 songs do we want to put on this record? Because
right.
because we've got 40 here, or however many it was. Like, we had a lot. So that was the biggest challenge. And then, of course, the album came out and it was a big success. We had a huge single and a couple of really good follow-up singles. And like I said, we sold, over 1 million records, did a bunch of really big, huge tours. But I think everybody realized that the wheels were falling off, and it was like, okay, this is unsustainable. Even me and my naive, young self, I was looking around thinking, okay, this is not going to last.
Yeah.
And so I think that I don't know how it was after we left, because we left, like, we were in the process of writing and doing demo stuff for the second record when we pulled the plug. And basically we left, and Travis continued on. To his credit, he continued on. I think that the second and third Days of New records are pretty damn good records.
Yeah.
They're different because we're gone. That, like, he sort of took the thing and went in his own direction.
Right.
But I think they turned out to be pretty good records. But we we weren't around for whatever pressures were being put on by record labels or whatever for the creative aspect of it, because like I said, it was all created. We just had to. Scott Lick he was the producer for the first Days of the New record, and he was a very well-known producer. He had done like all of REM's records, and he was just a very well-known record producer, very talented guy. But there wasn't a whole lot for him to do because the songs were mostly complete. So his job was to make sure that we had good, solid, clean recorded versions of it, and to sort of babysit us to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know how to, as far as the studio goes. I look back on it now, like, I have pictures. We're basically just running around drinking beer and shooting each other with Nerf guns. It's like, I couldn't imagine trying to be in a studio and trying to get work done, and I've got these freaking 4, 20-year-old kids, and I'm trying to be like, hey, get your shit together here, man. We got work to do.
Babysit's probably the right word.
Yeah. So he was sort of, he was trying to shepherd us in and get us. And I don't think the record would have been as good without him. But like I said, the songs were kind of already written. His job was just to get a good product out of the songs.
Right. What's that first song that really launches you guys? I can't. What was it? Was it "Shelf in the Room" came first?
No, his "Touch Me on the Stand" was the first single.
Okay. And but where are you, or are you able to tap into, and this is going back obviously a lot of years. Are you able to tap into, like, where you are the first time that you hear that song, or that that song is really starting to, start to become, for lack of a better word, a phenomenon, or people are starting to listen to it a lot. It's popping up all over radio stations.
Yeah. So I don't know I don't remember the first time that I heard it played on the radio, but that was a big deal back in the day. A lot of younger people don't realize how powerful radio was. Rock radio was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
But I remember, so they put us out on the road, early on, and we did quite a bit of touring for probably like a 6-month period before the record came out. Like the record was recorded, they had a release date, but they wanted us to go out and get our feet wet actually playing shows for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I remember the difference between before the single was released and after the single was released. Because like before the single was released, we were going into these clubs and people were enjoying it, you know, and we were making friends and selling t-shirts and stuff. But then once the single came out, and I don't know if it still holds the record, but for a long time it held the record. It spent 16 weeks at #1 at rock radio. Like it was a massive song through like 97 and into 98. You just couldn't get away from it. And when it started hitting the radio really heavy and getting high rotation, I remember we were at a place called, you're up like in the Northeast up there, right?
I'm in upstate New York. Yeah. Yep.
There was I don't know, there was a place, this might have just been Massachusetts. You remember a place called Newbury Comics?
Yeah, that's Massachusetts. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were doing an in-store performance at Newbury Comics. And I remember that we showed up and it was like that scene. You seen Happy Gilmore?
Yes.
You know, when he's walking down and Shooter McGaffin pulls up in the limo and he goes, man, it must be Burt Reynolds or something. Like we had this moment, we pulled up to this in-store and the crowd was there. I was like, holy crap. It was like, it must be Burt Reynolds or something. Like who's here?
Yeah.
But they were there for us. And they ended up having to shut it down early and calling the police because people were climbing up the side of the building trying to get inside. It was like the Beatles were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was like that moment between nobody really knowing who we were to all of a sudden, holy crap, like this is a security risk. This building's going to collapse because so many people are trying to get in, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
So that was a pretty like memorable moment where I was like, okay, this is actually kind of a big deal now, you know?
Yeah. And when you guys leave the band, you know, how come not 2 versions of Days of the New? Obviously, we've seen bands, you know, be 2 different versions. Does he definitively have the Days of the New name?
He definitively does.
Okay.
And so,
as much as I hate it, we do have 2 versions of a lot of bands, and I think it's stupid too. You know, there's like a Great White, but then there's a Jack Russell's Great White, and there's 2 LA Guns, and there's 2 Queensryches, or Jeff Tate had a Queensryche for a while. You know, I hate seeing it happen, but I mean, and maybe that's not even a road you guys wanted to explore, but he does definitively have the Days of the New. That's his band name.
Yeah. Now we had that option for Tantric. But obviously didn't take it. We didn't pursue that as an option to keep the Tantric name. We just moved on. Travis owns the name, and Travis owned a lot. This is something that, so to get down into like legal details here, the way that it kind of worked is that there was a deadline where we were going to sign the record deal with Geffen Records, okay? And it just so happened, not many people are, Travis was the youngest guy in the band, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And when it was time to sign the contract, he was the only one that was still not a legal adult and able to sign the contract.
Okay.
So his dad had to sign the contract for him. And his dad went in and said, listen, I am not going to sign this contract if these other guys are on the contract. I'm going to sign this contract on Travis's behalf. You guys are going to have Travis as an artist, and then we will create another contract for these guys under Travis. a separate agreement. So and we didn't know, because once again, we were young and stupid. We didn't realize.
Right.
And that, I didn't even find that out until a little later. And that hurt me, actually, because, growing up, Travis's dad was a lot like I thought of him like a father figure. He was really good to me growing up. And then he kind of stabbed us in the back on that one. But that's the way it went down. And so when time came to put ink on the paper, Travis's dad sort of blocked the rest of us out of the deal, so that when the band split up, we basically had no rights.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, the only reason, this is some really inside baseball stuff, and I don't think I've ever told anybody this before, but the only reason that I did the reunion tour back in 2014,
right,
a precondition to doing the reunion tour was that I made Travis sign back over royalties to us.
Okay.
Because from 1998 to 2014, we didn't get any Days of New royalties.
Wow.
But since 2014, I've been seeing my rightful cut of that stuff.
Good.
Because it was my condition to doing that tour. And even though the tour fell apart, it was a good move on my part to sort of make sure that I got something out of it.
Yeah. And I got to ask, and maybe you won't know this, any truth to, and again, this goes back to the top of the interview when we said, don't believe everything you read on the internet, but I don't know that I heard this on the internet, but I heard it somewhere though. Any truth ever that that Travis was going to take over when Lane Staley passed away in Alice in Chains?
I don't know that.
No.
I've heard that rumor as well, but I've never actually asked Travis about it. Now, I do know this. I do know that Mike Starr, when Mike Starr passed away, who, of course, you probably know Mike Starr was the original bass player for Alice in Chains.
One of my favorite bands. Yeah.
But when Mike Starr passed away, he and Travis had been getting together and playing, and they were going to put a project together, the two of them. And so I don't know if there's some wires crossed on that rumor that somebody misinterpreted his potential project with Mike Starr is going to be a Alice in Chains thing.
Yeah.
But Travis could have done that. Like he has a very versatile voice, and a lot of people recognize his guitar playing, but vocally, he's got a big range, and he barely used any of it in the Days of the New stuff. Like he can sing high, he can sing low, he can pretty much do everything,
And what did you think of and again, this is just strictly your opinion. Were you aware of or did you watch when Travis famously appeared on the show Intervention?
I did not watch it. But though the producers of that show did contact me before they made the show, and they wanted me to be part of that show. And I don't know what that even meant. I can't remember if they wanted me to just be one of those people who they interview and then they show clips of the interview throughout the thing, or if they wanted me to like participate in his intervention. But I just told him no. I was like, I thought it was a bad idea. I thought it was kicking somebody when they were down. Those people can say they have the best intention, but what their intention was to make a show and then sell that show to a network who was going to have advertisers pay for it. Like it was a money making venture.
Right.
It wasn't some altruistic, thing that they were doing for Travis. And so I just I said I didn't really want to do anything with that.
And again, as we've said a few times through this interview, never say never, but, a rumor has it, and I do like to keep up with, because Days of the New was just such a big part of my, of my musical, upbringing, listen to you guys. I mean, the music is just such a part of my life that I do like to keep up. And it does sound like Travis is trying to get his life together. Do you think we will ever see anything? He's always talking about getting these Days of the New albums out. Do you think he'll ever get the traction to actually get it going?
I don't know, man.
I'm certainly rooting for him.
Listen, I am too. Now, I'm rooting for him. I don't wish him any ill will, even though I have cause to do so. like, it was. I talked to him 2 or 3 years ago, and he was. There was a short period of time where he and I were texting back and forth, and he was telling me that he was, trying to get and stay clean, and I was trying to be really supportive of that effort because I've seen, not only with him but for lots of people in my life, how horrible drugs can be for people.
Absolutely.
And so even though he was living out in Utah at the time and I live here in Indiana, I was trying to be supportive just through the phone, like texting back and forth. Hey, you got this, buddy. Here's my advice on this, whatever. But then when the pandemic hit and he found out that Matt and Todd and I were getting together to do a record with a different singer, he totally shifted. And I think he has this really sort of like a jealous bone where he got really upset that we were going to do something and he hasn't been able to do something in so long.
Right.
And so he sent me a series of text messages and he said things to me that I won't repeat, but pretty much I've never had anybody talk to me that badly in my whole life and not get punched in the mouth for it.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It was real bad stuff. So all that is to say that, like, sure, there's a part of me that's just like, hey, screw that guy. But the bigger part of me remembers him as, my little brother when we were growing up. Like, I think no matter how old I get, I'm going to have some appreciation for who he was, if not who he is. And I do wish him the best, and I hope that he can work through the demons and release some new material. And I know he's got a lot of material.
Yeah.
Like when we did the reunion tour 9 years ago, we were going through stuff, and I was very intentional. Like, he was showing me all this stuff he was writing, and I was very intentional not to show him anything I was writing because it wasn't my first rodeo. I didn't want him stealing my stuff again.
Right. Material's material. I mean,
yeah. So I held on to any of my ideas, but he was showing me stuff, man. And he's just one of those guys, man. He just wakes up in the morning and just hit song falls out of his, he's just out of nowhere.
Yep.
And so he's got the material. If he could get himself straight enough, and if he could get enough of a support structure around him that are not enablers or yes men,
divisive.
Because there are people who will enable him and will get him the things he wants just to be able to hang out with him. And then there are other people who are, the more professional side of people, and they'll just sort of drag him along to try to squeeze money out of him. So,
right.
If I could just keep this guy sober for, the next couple of weeks and get a record out of him, I can make some money. Right. But they don't really care about him. If he could get some real people that care about him and that he would let care about him, he could put out some great music.
And it's nice that, it's nice because to hear you say, all of us as individuals, we handle, obviously when we get older, we handle getting slighted. We start to look at it with a little different slant. It is nice to have, hear you say that of all the wrongs done against you, that you are still rooting for them, though. I mean, it really is brotherhood, though. I mean, in its simplest form.
It really is. There are certain people in my life who. And I don't want you to interpret this as me talking about Travis or anybody else that you would know, but there are people in my life who have been sort of grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Who, like, I know some people who I still value as people, but I know they're actually kind of pieces of shit.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's like,
but there they are. They're in your life.
You still have that fondness, and you got to keep them at a distance, and you can't really let them into your life, but you still have this love for them. You just want the best for them.
It's hilarious, though. They're pieces of shit, but there they are.
There they are. And
still floating there.
Exactly. You can't quite flush the toilet. You just got to kind of leave it.
And so now fast forward to present time now. You put out an album in 2021. How active and how prolific do you want to be with BLISSKRIEG? Obviously, you said you haven't taken it out live yet. How fast do you want to roll out another album? Do you want to start doing some touring? What's the big picture look like with this band?
Man, the big picture is murky. It's difficult to see. Really the thing is that we, like I said before, we're kind of all grown-ups now. Like I have this thing that I've built that requires a lot of my time and attention. The Crashers keeps me very busy. Matt, I'm really proud of Matt, because Matt's had some ups and downs, struggles in his life as well. He never really quite got as bad as Travis, I don't think, but Matt's had some struggles.
Yeah.
But he has really turned to 180, man. He's got his own company, and he's killing it right now. I'm really proud of him.
That's good to hear.
And Todd, same with Todd. He's down there in Florida, and he's got his own family and commitments, and so it's like most of the time, Matt lives not far from me. Matt lives maybe 20-25 minutes from me, and sometimes I'll go over there. He's got a little studio built in his house, and we'll just hang out and jam some drum and bass stuff together, sometimes. But to be honest, most of the time when I hang out with Matt, I just want to hang out with Matt.
Yeah, right.
Like I was over at his house, I guess it was a couple of Saturdays ago. I was over there, and he was his daughter just graduated from high school, and I was just hanging out. That's the stage we're at in our life, where it's like, it's not that I don't want to do anything with BLISSKRIEG. It's just like we have to find the right time to be able to make that stuff happen. And we put the record out, and we've actually written another tune that I think is a really great tune, but it's like we can't find the time to finish it.
Is it fair to say? Is it fair to say maybe this band could just maybe be just a studio band?
I think that's safe to say. I mean, that's all it's been so far, and it's more of a, when we did Days of the New and when we did Tantric, these were moonshots. We were swinging for the fences. We were like, okay, how far can this rocket ship take us?
Right.
And both of those rocket ships took us pretty far. We did all right with both of those things.
Yep.
BLISSKRIEG, we didn't quite have the same approach. It was literally like, hey, I don't have anything going on because the whole world shut down for COVID. You guys want to hang out and play some music? And then once we heard the songs that were coming out, it was like, well, hell, why don't we just throw this out on Spotify and let other people listen to it? Like we didn't really have this big thing where it was like, okay, this is going to be our next big project that's going to carry us through and make a bunch of money and do a bunch of. It's like we just wanted to make some music. So that's kind of what it's become. I mean, it's brought in a little bit of money, which a little bit of money is always better than no money.
Yeah.
But
we can agree on that.
Yeah. So it's been a really great experience, and it's been we haven't lost money on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, in this day and age in the music business, what more could you ask for?
Right.
Because this is a very difficult time to be trying to make money in the music business. It's very, there's luck has always been a factor in the music business as to whether or not you were going to be able to do something. But now it seems like it's like an amplified factor. It's like you have to be so lucky to break out of the gate and actually get some traction with a music career these days.
There's a lot of stuff. There's an influx of a lot of stuff too. I was just talking with someone the other day, and they said 60 to 70,000 new songs being put on these platforms daily. It's crazy. You could never get through all the new music that's out there. So talk to me a little bit about the bread and butter then. Louisville Crashers. Like, what is that? So is that a band where people can contact you and you were talking about doing events? People can hire this band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if anybody out there wants to hire us, thecrashers.com. This band is a bunch of killers. And like I said, I had to really step my game up. When we put this band together 15 years ago, you know, we put it together because we thought, hey, you know what, we could probably make a little bit of money, playing some weddings.
Yeah.
Because there was a market for wedding entertainment here locally. It's like, okay, well, if I start, playing some shows, I can learn some of these sort of standard cover tunes, play some events, and then every night, instead of having to get on the bus and wake up 400 miles away, I could just drive home and sleep in my own bed at night. You know what I mean? Make a little money, have a little fun, and this could be the thing. But this has turned into a pretty big regional attraction. This band, when we play publicly, knock on wood, when we play publicly, a lot of people show up.
Yeah.
Like it's a big draw. There's a lot of talent in the band. It's we can do anything. And I mean, like we could play Kansas or Styx or Van Halen, and then turn around and play Lizzo or Taylor Swift, and then turn around and play Garth Brooks. And it's like,
that's fun.
It's like, the song list is endless of the stuff that we've learned over the years. And it is, fun is the word, man. I mean, it's a great time, and I'm able to make a pretty good living doing it. And I really enjoy the guys I'm doing it with. So it's fun. But like I said, it's a different animal. It is not like anybody who was like a big Days of the New fan. If they were to come out and see the Crashers, they'd be like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah,
like, it's so different than what we did back in the day. But for somebody like me, you spend the early part of your life building a certain skill set, and then once you're done. When I was done with Days of the New Tantric, I started looking around. I was like, oh, like nobody's hiring rock stars. What am I going to do for a living?
Right. Right.
Like, okay, I didn't, when I graduated high school, I didn't go to college. I don't know how to do anything but play this bass.
Right.
So that's what I did. And you have to make it work. And that's what we've done. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. And not to mention, you're doing something that seems to be increasingly difficult. As you mentioned before, you're making a living doing music. I mean, a lot of people that do it professionally and are trying to get their albums out there and become big stars can't make a living, and they're having to take a day job.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
A lot of people will write off what we do in the Crashers. A lot of quote unquote, cool musicians.
Yeah.
They will look at what we do and they'll be like, oh, well, you're not being true to your art, or you're not, or you're selling out or whatever. It's like, you call it what you want, man.
Yeah.
I'm paying my bills. I'm having a good time doing it.
Yeah. That's what matters at the end of the day.
And and we provide, like, this may sound a little corny, but there's a certain amount of respect in the local community. Like we do a lot of events, like we just did. There's a thing here, a local thing here right across the river in Louisville, Kentucky, called the Crusade for Children. Mm-hmm. And we just played an event for the Crusade, and got to do a lot of good for kids. Like, there's so many opportunities that I get to have in this current stage of my life that I wouldn't get to have any other way.
Yeah.
And so I no regrets at all about this current trajectory here.
Well, this usually winds up being the most polarizing question, and I will ask you because some people I let off the hook and some people I don't, and I'm not going to let you off the hook. I'm dropping Jesse Vest on a desert island. What's the desert island album that you're taking with you? No greatest hits, no compilations, and apparently I have to add no soundtracks because someone got me the other day with they took the Forrest Gump soundtrack. You know what? I had to make a rule. Got me on that one. I mean, it is a good soundtrack. And you're encompassing a lot of classic rock in there. So, hey, shame on me. I mean, but.
Well, I don't really even have to think about this.
Wow. All right. I always like when a guest says that. Go ahead.
And it may not be what anybody expects, but if it's just one record and that's all I get, I'm picking Asia by Steely Dan.
Okay. And why? Do you have if people were to come at you about this pick, how do you defend it?
Oh, well, I don't need to.
Okay.
Because it defends itself.
Okay.
It is
confident in his pick.
Yes, very confident pick. I don't know how big like Steely Dan is not. Again, it's like, people who are Days of the New fans that see me in the Crashers are like, what's this all about?
Right.
If you hear Steely Dan, it doesn't sound like the kind of music that somebody from Days of the New is going to listen to.
Right. But
it's got everything, man. It's got excellent musicianship. It has these sort of the vibe. Like, we just talk about vibe for a second, like just the general ambiance of the record. Because I think that's one thing that we did very well in Days of the New. Like, when you listen to that record, no other record sounds like it.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And Steely Dan, that Asia record is like that. No other record sounds like it. It's a masterpiece from beginning to end. It's all killer, no filler. That's my pick.
It's going to cover all the emotions that you're going to be going through out on this desert island too, because you're obviously going to have days where you're going to be sad and downtrodden, and then ultimately you're going to die to this album.
Yeah. Well, see, here's what I don't want to do. What I don't want to do is pick like a sad record. Like, I don't want to take a Billie Eilish record or a Fiona Apple record and then be depressed the whole time until I die.
Right.
This Steely Dan record, it's got some emotional range, but mostly it's an upbeat, good time record. And if I'm going to be stranded by myself on a desert island, I want to have a good time. Yeah. Like, I'm going to find a pina colada or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who knows what could be growing on this island? I mean, you could strike you could strike out on this island and find God knows what. Maybe you'll find your pina colada or some, some herb growing there. Who knows? I mean,
hey, you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah, but you'll have the Steely Dan album though, and I guess someone threw the curve at me, like, how am I playing this thing if I'm on a desert island? So we'll just say that, for argument's sake, a record player that's apparently got to be solar powered, washed up on shore. So,
okay, that sounds plausible.
It's gonna have to be, because I don't know what you'd play this thing on. I mean,
yeah, well, all I've got is a vinyl, so it's gonna have to be a record player. I don't have a CD or anything. So
you're a traditionalist, yeah. Old school. I like that, and I respect that, man. Yeah. But listen, man, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. This has been a real blast getting to talk to you, man. It's one of my favorite episodes, man. It's been really fun chopping it up with you. Thanks for doing it, man. Really.
Oh, no problem at all. Happy to do it.
Hopefully we can keep in touch. We'll do it again sometime soon, man.
Yeah, man. It'd be good.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. Later, man. There he goes, folks. That is Jesse Vest. You know him as one of the original members of the phenomenally talented Days of the New. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, Days of the New were just such a fucking awesome band. Jesus Christ. Let me just sit here and lament for a minute. Man, they were fucking great. And then Tantric, also fucking great. Now he's got a band called BLISSKRIEG with some of the members from Days of the New. So that core group of guys seems to stay together and really make great music. Him and Matt and Todd, the other core members of the original Days of the New, along with the aforementioned Travis Meeks, who we talked about in there. That's the classic lineup, man, that brought us so much great shit. I mean, fuck. You couldn't turn on a radio in the late 90s and not hear fucking Days of the New. I mean, opening up for Metallica right out of high school. I mean, fucking the guys are legends, man. Tantric, also equally fucking phenomenal. The BLISSKRIEG album, 2021, they put out called Remedy, a fucking awesome album. And hey, go hire the Louisville Crashers. For God's sakes, they can play your next fucking whatever you're having. Very versatile. Need them for the bar mitzvah, the wedding, the fucking whatever, man. hey, he's laughing all the way to the bank and paying his fucking bills, man. So, kudos to Jesse, man. Playing music, getting paid for it, paying his bills, and having a good fucking time, man. He's living his best life. He's a fucking legend. He deserves to. That was a fucking fun conversation, man. I'm glad I got the chance to do that with him, man, and run him down and get the chance to talk to him. Jesse Vest. I'm always going to say Jesse Vest of Days of the New. Because I want to say that, man. That band is, I'm going to go throw some on the minute I get off of this fucking, interview here. As soon as this episode ends, it's Days of the New time. And then maybe some Tantric. Now I'll go listen to that BLISSKRIEG album again. But, fucking phenomenal episode, man. I hope you guys dug that, man. That was super fucking fun, man, and just a great, insightful conversation, man. And learned a lot about the business dealings and the real behind the door stuff that was going on back then. Super interesting conversation. Hope you guys dug it. And until we get together and we do this thing again, remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.